What's going on, everybody? Holiday weekend coming up. We had to squeeze in one more episode of Hoop Sense before we get you out there. We're here with Trey, but before we dive in, Trey, just a reminder, if you're first time here, do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, get active in the chat. If you're on the podcast streets, rate, review. Come on, let's build that algo up. Trey, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Man, I'm good, man. A little busy NBA season, all season,
Yeah.
but not nothing too crazy.
It feels like it's coming in flurries too. Like we'll get a quiet 8 to 10 hours and then bang, bang, bang. I feel like we have to start with the Bucks because
Hmm.
I didn't see. I feel like I'm pretty plugged in. I'm reading a lot, listening to a lot. I did not see any of this coming from. For those who are not on Twitter, I guess, or paying attention, Miles Turner signs. I believe it was like a 4-year, 107 million to go from Indiana to Milwaukee, and that was announced before they made the move that financially allowed them to do this, which was to waive and stretch Dame over the next 5 years. I saw you had a great tweet about calling that was like some football shit, like where somebody gets treated like that. What was just like your reaction as all that went down?
Initially, I can't say I wasn't like wow like the rest of us. I think it was
Yeah,
more offset. But it actually was in the works from the jump.
yeah,
You get what I'm saying? And when you have logic, which sucks, you know what I
hmm,
mean? Because no one wants to view it as logic. A 35-year-old making 110 plus and not available the entire season. Plus, you know, you got a disgruntled, star who
yeah,
wants immediate action. I don't think that's the initial thing. So, in order to land actual talent that he wants to potentially play with, you kind of have to make that move. So, I think it was a double wow because they signed Miles Turner,
hmm,
who just played in the finals with the Pacers,
yeah,
and they couldn't get that right. I think it was 15 million off.
hmm,
He wanted to make at least as enough to kind of rival Nas Reed,
right.
right?
Which
And
I think is a fair request. Like
yeah,
knowing who
I
Miles
don't,
Turner is, that doesn't seem unrealistic to me at all.
I think he caught their bluff. They didn't move, and he made the best decision for him. Go get your money, Miles. But in the process, we had a casualty, which is Damian Lillard. And if it was not Damian Lillard, no one would make a fuss. You get what I'm saying? It's just that Damian Lillard is who he is, respectable, went out there and played hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When his team was facing elimination, and this was the treatment that he got. Now, obviously, there's some dirty spat going online where
Right.
the stories are kind of saying, well, he never wanted to be here. He wanted to rehab in Portland. Why, like let's just cut ties with it. Giannis knew, just different things that just makes it even more muddier than it should be.
Hmm.
But realistically, as a 35-year-old coming off of a torn Achilles, making a bunch of money, and they had to just do a salary dump. And that's an NFL move. When you got a running back that has had injuries, that can't do those 1,000 seasons anymore, but they
Gone.
have the name and they cut them. And you're like, what? They cut
Yeah.
them? Like they cut big names all the time.
Well, I grown up as a like New England Patriots fan, like our head coach at the time, who's now in the news for lots of other stuff. But Bill Belichick used to do this all the time. Like one of my favorite players when I was younger, like in college, was a defensive guy, Lawyer Malloy, and then it
Lawyer
was just like
Malloy.
he was like an All Pro guy, and then bang, he was gone the next day. I think the one difference between this though is that Milwaukee, like it's not like you cut him and the money's gone. I do
Hmm.
think that is pretty because like you said, we wouldn't have talked like when Nick Batum did this with the Charlotte Hornets. We didn't really talk about it too much because it wasn't. I don't think it was as much money. I mean, I think for the Bucks to just be like, we are going to pay $22 million every year to nobody for the next 5 years. That's basically like another Kyle Kuzma. That's like what Kuzma's making right now. Is kind of like that is what really stunned it for me. And I know, like you were talking about the messiness that's kind of coming out now too. I just think like I feel like Damon's been such a professional with all of this, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but like it was clear this was not his preferred landing spot when the trades were happening. But I felt like he showed up, he played hard, like he did. There was no point where it felt like he was actively out there being like, I don't want to be here. It seemed like he was nothing but a professional. So like Shouts to that. But
Whether it was 60-40, he still showed up and played with the team. He didn't try to force another trade. He
Mhm.
didn't do all his other things. He came out there, he gelled, he leaned into the whole Giannis thing, even
Yeah,
though maybe they're type A and they clash.
right.
I think that's a whole nother thing. I mean, Dame had never been a number two in his career,
Hmm.
professional career at that. So to be able to be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah,
And it just never really clicked how it was supposed to be. But I think that's not a way to kind of part ways. I just think the Bucks have made a lot of changes in the past 3 seasons that have been went backwards. You know what I mean? They're now
yeah,
without Brook Lopez. They re-signed Gary Trent Jr. They re-signed Bobby Portis. They now added Miles Turner. And then you look at that roster from top to bottom. I mean, they traded Pat Connaughton, and you say, hey, is this a team that can legit compete for an Eastern Conference Finals, but also make it to the finals? And I just don't think that it's enough to move the
yeah,
needle as these other teams are, even though there is an opening in the Eastern Conference.
yeah. That I'm with you on that, man. Like if this was a move that I thought was going to really like vault them forward, I'd be closer to being like, okay, I understand it. But to me, like it's Giannis, Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma. That's going to be like your front court. That sounds nice or whatever. And then it's Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr. And I just like seeing where Cleveland's bringing their core back. They seem like they're ready to go. They brought Sam Merrill back as well to come off the bench for this upcoming season. You have the Knicks, who finally shut out Mike Brown. We should talk about that in a little bit. He's new head coach of the New York Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to be right there. The Magic made some like real professional upgrades in Desmond Bain. Detroit's an up and coming team. Like I think I would take all of those teams, including and like Atlanta Hawks. I mean, I think I'd roll with the Hawks right now as a full unit. And then that's not even including like what the 76ers are going to give us this year, because I think it's hard to know what that's going to look like. So you look at all of that, and I feel like I'm taking all of those teams ahead of the Bucks. So it really does feel like short-term, desperate type. Like we need to make sure we're still out there competing. And I'm happy to be proven wrong if the Bucks go out there and just stack up W's. But I just and I like Miles Turner too. But just looking at like the Bucks' future, I don't know. Like, are you with me on that with where the Bucks line up with the East, or do you think it's a little bit higher of a ceiling than that?
I mean, sports is pretty weird, man. You can count a team out and say, "Hey, they not there." I mean, you look how people talked about the Pacers all year, and they managed to make it to the finals. So you just never know. But I do still think that there's an issue right there where is your star happy? He doesn't have a no trade clause,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of does have leverage to a
Right.
point of he's going to be the biggest player they're ever going to have in their franchise, but also from a scenario of like really thinking about um what's life after Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Which in some cases it would be relatable to Dallas, but Dallas at least still had Kyrie Irving. They end up
Right.
getting Anthony Davis in return and now adding Cooper Flag. The sky's not falling. You know what I mean? I
Right.
don't think that's the case for Milwaukee. They didn't have a great draft position. You know what I mean? And now they kind of got to figure out their future. You know what I mean? Especially with the money due to Giannis and also his expectations.
Yeah, one of the things too I wanted to ask you about, because I wanted to talk a little bit more about like Dame and what Dame's future looks like. But before we like go there, because I feel like you probably have some pretty good perspective on this. Does like free agents or other stars, other players who are interested, or like maybe Milwaukee is on the radar for them as like a future destination? Does
No.
how they handle this Damian Lillard situation, does that actually move the needle at all? Like, is that in the back of players' minds, or is that like such a unique situation of Dame getting hurt at the age that he's at with the money he was making? Like, does that factor in at all, you think?
No, because it's a business, man.
Hmm.
If a team offers a bag, they're gonna go unless they
Yeah,
just really just don't like the why would I go there at this point in my career? You get what I'm saying?
sure, sure.
But that's very a younger player's play to be like, I don't want to play there yet. Older
Yeah,
players are more open to playing anywhere. You see, we had Carmelo Anthony playing in OKC and in Portland in his later years. He just wanted to get
sure.
on the court. So I don't think it affects Milwaukee, but I think it's going to be the beginning of those more cutthroat moves in the league. I think
Yeah,
that was very ballsy. You know what I mean? We're just facing a new era where GM or owner can trade a Luka Doncic, where a GM and owner can cut a Damian Lillard, and it just brings the players back to, oh, this is a players' league. The players have all the power, and the owners are just taking it back.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I hadn't really linked it to like what happened with Dallas and Luca, but you're right. That is kind of a change in I don't want to say league philosophy, but you're right. Like it's a different direction. Speaking of different directions, we're like so Dame's been, I guess, rumored or linked to Golden State, to Boston, which I didn't really fully understand. I explain this to me. If I kind of was like, why pick a spot right now? And unless it's because like, the medical training staff facilities to rehab in, sure, I get that. But wouldn't you want to sit back and kind of like see how things play out and then see like what the best fit is for you versus just locking something in right away?
I mean, it's like the dating game right now. You always want to see who's interested in you.
Sure.
So you're going to take the calls. You're going to, listen to the recruitment pitches and things of that nature. And I don't see Damian Lillard playing a basketball game this season, despite
No.
him being ahead of schedule. You know what I mean? No, but if he was in a Milwaukee Buck uniform, he would have been
Yeah.
trying to play late in March and April, during that time, which would have been an ultimate speed thing.
Hmm.
This actually helps him sit, focus on getting fully healthy, and then also looking at the law of the land. But I do see the advantages of signing with a team, being around a team, building that chemistry before you get on the
Great
floor
point.
to a point where you know the offense, guys, you got that relationship. My dark horse would have been Houston because they need
Hmm.
a point guard and they can move Fred VanVleet to the two, which is his primary position. He's been playing the one for the past couple seasons,
Oh, that's
which
fun.
is, but and his kids also live there. So, I mean, I think that would be an interesting spot and put him in a situation to contend. But you got Golden State from Oakland. I don't know if he wants to play off the ball or on the ball with Steph Curry. He wants to probably continue that rivalry. I was talking to a buddy of his, and I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to interfere with any of these
Yeah.
things, and everybody has. It's a lot of loud noise at this moment, and it's up to Dame to choose. But I was really thinking about how he was very firm on not teaming up, not trying to take an easy route, but he's going to be on the other side of 30s. You know what I
Right.
mean? On the tail end of 30s. And that window of actually winning something is starting to close. So
Hmm.
um now that you have a chance to actually compete and join a legit roster, no matter what, because you're getting 22 a year for the next 5. So that's
Right.
stretched. It's guaranteed money. You don't have to worry about that part. But where do you see yourself as a good fit? You know what I mean? The Lakers, not going to be a good move.
No.
Um, uh, I don't even really see. I mean, again, like if he was healthy and he got waived, Indiana would have been perfect. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Boston still works out, but him and Tatum would come back because they need a true point guard. But also, is it enough? Again, a ball dominant guy playing with ball dominant players, does it truly work out? And I think those are the things. Does Jamal Murray in a situation in there where he ends up in Denver,
Wow.
Utah, where he potentially returns back to, Weber State and his connection to Utah. So you just never know where it is. But I think it's obviously, when it happened, people felt sorry for him and was
Yeah.
kind of like, oh man. But when you really think about it, he's good. He's in the best situation you possibly could be in because you got the guaranteed money. You're not stressed out about how I'm gonna make the next contract, but you get a chance to fully recover, sit back, look at the game, spend time with your family, reset, work on some new stuff with your new body
Yeah.
because some things are going to be changed. But the good thing is he can shoot the three. That never,
That doesn't go away.
that doesn't go away. And just kind of get right there and kind of see what the best situation is because injuries happen all the time, jobs open up all the time,
Right.
and teams get good. So he may land in the best situation, and this is the first time in his career he gets to control where he wants to go.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that too about because I hadn't really thought about like chemistry building, so that would be like a reason to kind of to link up now. But you're right. Like I love the idea of him being like, let's see what is the best basketball situation moving forward, and Also, man, I would love to be good at anything enough that if I was asked to no longer do that job, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna pay you 100+ million over the next 5 years, just cause." So that you're right, that is a good spot to be in for him. I hadn't even thought about Denver. It's funny, like the first two names you hear, it was like Golden State and Boston. So you're like, oh, it's got to be one of those two teams. But you're right, like just taking a step back and being like, okay, where can I like still have an impact performance, right? Like, not that you're just like jumping on a team like it's the '04 Lakers or whatever to be a part of it, but like actually still like impact winning, but put yourself in a situation where you're able to like compete. Yeah, I'll be excited to see where he lands. I'm such a Dame fan. I love watching him play. So I'm rooting for a speedy recovery and just hoping that he can find a spot
He's
that
one of the most liked guys in the league.
dude, he's just I mean, again, we were talking about this with Halliburton a little bit. Like, it's what we want to see the guy in the moment hit the shot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, Dame did that forever. He did that
Yeah.
forever. I'm such a fan. I'm excited for wherever he goes next. Let's do. You mentioned Denver. I think the Denver trade happened after our last episode, right? So we had Cam Johnson heading over from Brooklyn for Michael
Mm-hmm.
Porter Jr., which is like half the cost, and then a 2032 unprotected pick, I believe. And then
Mm-hmm.
Denver, right after that, they got Bruce Brown, which was kind of like an open secret that we all knew he was coming back there.
Mm-hmm.
But then Tim Hardaway Jr. and getting Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric. I feel like this is the first time we've seen Denver be active in the offseason in a while. What did you kind of think about some of the moves that we saw from Denver?
Bro, teams are just getting better, man. They're taking the OKC blueprint, going for needs versus names.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the best situation. Obviously, I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to be fine in Brooklyn. He's going to take a lot of shots. He's going to be a comfortable option one for the first time in his career. But they're probably going to be a single digit win team. You know what I mean? If that, and still trying to find their way. But then, Denver gets back a competent, consistent shooter in Cam Johnson, one of the league's leading catch and shoot guys. And then you got whether you want to move Jokic to the 4, you got backup big, you know what I mean, with Jonas Valanciunas, you know what I mean. But then also like I mean, you just think about from the needs are fit. Don't mean that doesn't mean that there's a guaranteed anything, but just know that teams are still in it and feel like they have a chance. You know what I mean?
Well, and it was funny after OKC got the title, right? There's a lot of like, wow, they are set up to dominate for like the next 3 or 4 years. And what's been really cool is the West, specifically like Houston and Denver, being like, we're not trying to hear that. Like, we are going to go build the team right now that we think can hang with you. And I think both of those
the second apron creates that opportunity. I mean, that's the thing. This is the dynasty killer. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You can get a shot, but again, it's not guaranteed. All year we talked about Boston. Anything can happen at this very moment, and you have to take advantage of it. When you see your opponent bleeding, you strike. And
For real.
in this particular moment, like, Thunder are the champs until somebody beats them, but that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed. There are other teams loading up and trying to get better. And it's going to continue to be competitive. Even Phoenix, you know what I mean? Although they have a weird situation with Bradley Beal, they made some positive actual transactions this offseason. They filled their front court. They were able to, lock in Devin Booker for a long-term situation that extends his career. And then, got some youth there. I mean, obviously they can't stretch and waive Bradley Beal because they did with Nasir Little. And I'm blanking on the other guy, but respecting him. But, overall, they're just in a situation that they're just going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, Phoenix at least is like they've now set themselves up for other moves that they can continue to make to like help starting to build around Booker. Like it's probably not going to be pretty immediately, but at least there's like a blueprint forward of like how they get back together a little bit. Another player that was bought out this week, which surprised me at first, and then all of the reporting that came out after, it sounds like Portland and DeAndre Ayton were both trying to uncouple, if you will, from each other. So Ayton signed yesterday. I wrote it down here. Was it 2 years? What do we got? 2 years, $16.6 million with the Lakers. Lakers kind of gifted a center because it was, as someone who is a Celtics fan trying to pay attention to what bigs are going to come to Boston next year, they're running out. Like the bigs are no longer on the market. Lakers are in a similar situation where they didn't have anybody, and then Ayton all of a sudden kind of falls to them. And I'm sure Lakers fans have already started, building out some graphics of like their new big three with Ayton, Luka, and LeBron. How are you feeling about like the landing spot for Ayton and kind of what this means for LA, like short term, I guess?
Clean slate. I mean, he had a good second half with Portland.
Hmm.
It took a while, but the skills are there. He's still very young. Um, they just have to see where they can use him. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is not a back to the basket team. He's not going to be used heavily offensively in this offense. You know what I mean? And hopefully, like he gets it. I
Yeah.
think the biggest challenge is he has a coach that is very ambitious, wants to win now. And he's going to have to get it, or he's going to be sitting on the bench. Like, and I think that's the beauty of it, of having a coach that cares really a lot, like JJ Redick. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
again, all that other stuff, it don't matter. I mean, former, number one pick, whatever, however you want to look at it, that's years beyond that. What can you do
Right.
for the Lakers right now? And it's a win now situation. Sure, you're living in LA. Sure, you're playing with LeBron and Luka, but what can you do for the team? And you know how it is. You play for the Lakers and Knicks, you're going to be the best prospect when
Right.
your name is associated with those franchises. But you still got to show and prove, because they'll have you in the trade machine by December.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's funny. I feel like we'll know what we're gonna get from Aiton for the rest of his career. I feel like from this year. Like if you got to be able to make it work here. Mainly because like I do think centers get not propped up, that's unfair, but highlighted when you get to play with Luka. Sometimes he's very good if you can like rim run a little bit, put a little bounce in it, Luka's going to find you. So I do think that is a good spot. I think you're right. I think there's going to be some great clips of JJ reacting to Ayton, whether or not rotating fast enough or not competing enough. I'm sure we will get some JJ clips. I also think too, like a player making 35 million a year versus a player making 8 million a year, like it's different for what is required / expected almost. And so like the level of
I don't think it's
no.
money. I don't think it's money, because at the end of the day, he is quote unquote the missing piece of the front
So
court.
that's yeah, true.
It's not about money in this situation. It never been about money. Gabe Vincent didn't make a bunch of money. They said, "Oh, he fixed shooting." Because you know,
Right,
remember,
right,
he
right.
came off an extraordinary shooting career
Yeah.
and came over to the Lakers and forgot how to shoot. And then he kind of shot better this past season. But at the end of the day, like Laker fans don't care about how much you're making. That I think that's more of a Knicks fan base thing, where they go to your
Yeah.
salary and say,
Yeah.
this guy's a bum because he's making we're paying this guy all this money. The Lakers are just kind of like, yo, Laker fans are like, yo, this guy's a bum because he can't
Yeah.
do anything. You know what I mean? Like I remember at one point in time when Jackson Hayes missed some time and they had lost to a specific team, they were like, we don't have Jackson Hayes.
Yeah.
They'll ride for their guys. Just
Yeah.
don't be stinky out there. And Jackson Hayes was just not great, where to a point where he was unplayable. So I think that they get to a point where DeAndre Ayton, you have a fair shot,
Yeah.
and that's up to you to succeed. You know what I mean? You got all the tools. You're playing with a good team. You have one of the worst teammate grades in Portland playing with those guys. You know what I mean? The Portland team, despite the trending upwards, they struggled a lot. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think that's the thing of like, now you're playing with a team that actually has majority of the tools needed to compete, but it's still a West, and the West is very tough.
The West, yeah, the West is very tough. You're right. He's going to get all the opportunity in the world, though, in LA. Like because it is just him and Jackson Hayes right now. So they need to,
Hmm.
they need for it to work. And again, that we don't have to get too much into all the rumblings around LA. I know that there's like rumors they're involved. Like this KD trade looks like it's expanding a little bit to include a few more teams. And so there was some like LA rumblings, but I think that's more smoke than an actual fire there. But we'll have more information when we're back next week for that. There was like two more things I think I wanted to hit. One I was supposed to hit earlier because we talked about Miles Turner going to Milwaukee, how this affected Milwaukee, how it affects Dame. I was kind of surprised by the Pacers not not keeping him around. And do you think this is just like direct? I mean, again, another victim of the second apron and the luxury tax and all that stuff. But do you think it is like that the Pacers are doing similar to what the Celtics are doing, where they're like, we're just gonna 1 year, we don't have Halliburton, we're gonna try to be like mid, get a pick, and then come back next year with Hallie back? Or do you think this was just they didn't want to pay Turner that money?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that they were like kind of penny pinching.
Yeah.
But from there, I just look at from a situation of yeah, I mean, I looked at their depth chart and I was up last night and I'm like, why am I caring so much about the Pacers roster? You know what I mean? Because I looked and I was like, does TJ McConnell, you know what I'm saying? Does TJ McConnell become the starting point guard? Does Nembhard get a chance to be the starting point guard? And now they stagger and put Mathurin at the 2 to make him a starter. And, you know, the front court is very thin.
Very thin.
So, yeah, they still got a roster to compete. I just don't know if they want to compete. Do you want to hit the draft hard, or do you want to just kind of rock with your core guys? And I think that's the thing at this moment. So, you know, Carlisle still likes to compete and all that other stuff. It's going to be a hard conversation to say, hey, I want you to lose a couple games so we can get into a situation. And I just don't think that's the case. I think they're going to still just try to stay in the midst of things while their star continues to work its way back. And it's not the end of the road. They still got Pascal Siakam. They still got this team's still a playing team.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, where it feels like they're not without Halliburton and now Turner, they're probably not talented enough, but probably not in the upper echelon of the East, but they're not bad enough to not compete. Like, you're right. They've got so many dogs in that group. I think it'll just be like you mentioned, Mathurin will get an opportunity to do a little bit more, maybe some more Obi Toppin run. They get Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman, which I mean, we'll see what we get from them. Actually, I kind of like Isaiah Jackson's game, but they get both of those guys back. So I think you're right that they're probably not, and they've just like never tanked. The Pacers just don't tank. That's not what they do. Even when they weren't like super competitive, they're always.
I mean, when they made all them trades, they ended up getting Victor. They still managed to be decent after the Paul George trade. So you know what I mean? Like they always figure it out, man, and they put down a competent squad, man. So I'm not too worried about them. And if they lost Pascal Siakam too,
then it's a different story.
Then it's a different story. You know what I mean? Because when you when you see it, that's you know that's a different thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, all right, well, we now got to hit panic mode.
Right, we're not there yet. All right, let's end with this. We can wrap here. Do you? Actually, I'll just throw it to you because I had a couple of things like, well, CP3, where do we see him go? Josh Giddey, but let me just put it to you like this: what's like the one thing we either haven't talked about, or somebody who hasn't signed, something you're like a team that you're waiting to see make a move? What's like what's the thing that's sticking out to you the most right now that you're waiting for like more info on?
None. I'm not sticking around waiting on nothing. I'm letting the NBA do what it needs to do. I have no overall concerns. You know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, when it's all said and done, everybody has a good team in July.
That's right.
I'm just ready. Yeah, you know what I mean? So at this point, I'm really not tripping, man. I'm just enjoying the quote unquote off season. I'm gonna take, you know, some time to watch some summer league, the first couple games.
Yeah.
I usually tap out after game 2 or 3.
Yeah, right about Saturday.
Yeah, so ideally I'm gonna check that out and, you know, just let the summer be, man. Not gonna be watching any workout videos. You know what I mean? Thinking about all that stuff, or the potential predictions of wins.
I saw the Amen Thompson, like the Amen Thompson jump shot mixtape go around yesterday. Be like, oh, he found his jumper, and I was like, all right, it's Tuesday, we can't, no workout tapes. Speaking of summer league, though, I'm gonna be out there the 10th to the 14th. So if there are any Hoop Sense heads out there, let me know. We'll be out getting there on Thursday night and going to games Thursday and Friday. So if you're gonna be around, shoot a message. And then, appreciate everybody for hanging out. We'll be back at some point early next week. Again, before you get out of here, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little notification bell so you know when the Count the Dings content's coming. And then if you're on the podcast, streets, rate and review, baby. Rate and review. But
yes, sir.
Hope everybody has a good go ahead. What did you say, Trey?
No, I say yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's right. Get it done. Hope everybody has a good holiday weekend. Shouts to Jerv for making the magic happen, and we'll see you guys next week.